guys. I'm Madison Clark, freelance correspondent with Pretty Vaccine. I'm here with Lucia Hermo, outreach paralegal with the American Civil Liberties Union-Alabama. So it's very nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
We're excited to have you as well. So thank you so much for helping us out with these questions and interview. Right now, the question on everyone's mind is focusing on your organization and with its efforts with the recent closures on many of the DMVs here in Alabama. Can you tell us how and when this began to be brought up legislatively and how it's come to pass?
Sure. Well, it's actually kind of interesting because the Alabama legislature passed this, I believe, about 4 years ago, and it has been holding in Alabama. They haven't implemented it until a very crucial juncture of our history. So last year, the Alabama Supreme Court, in a Shelby versus Holder decision, struck down a key provision to the Voting Rights Act, which would have made it impossible for Alabama to pass a voting ID law without it being reviewed by the Department of Justice, which means it probably wouldn't have gone through.
Right.
So the day that decision came down is when Alabama decided to implement their voter ID law. So, not very transparent way of saying, oh hey, now we can do something that originally would have been not allowed by the federal government. And so because of that, it is very difficult to litigate on this issue. The Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act was the thing that really gave us the most protection on this. So it really shows just how important it is, not only if you're an Alabamian resident, but if a resident of the U.S. or just anyone in general, to advocate for the passage of the Voting Rights Act amendment that will update that enforcement mechanism for the Voting Rights Act and make sure that this doesn't happen.
It sounds illegal, what they did. How is that able to happen?
It's able to happen through a combination of legislative and legal kind of workarounds, and the main thing is the fact that the Supreme Court struck down the key decision to the Voting Rights Act because they said that the enforcement mechanism was out of date, not necessarily because it wasn't necessary. And so what Congress needs to do is pass an up-to-date enforcement mechanism for the Voting Rights Act so that we can make sure this doesn't happen, and Congress hasn't done that, partly because they say that they haven't seen enough political capital or will from the people and other legislatures to do that. So that's what we're really trying to push nationwide. We need an enforcement mechanism for the Voting Rights Act, and the closure of these DMV offices is the perfect example for why we need that. Because before, with the Voting Rights Act, before doing anything like this, Alabama would have had to go to the federal government and get it reviewed.
Yeah, it seems like all this is in perfect timing with 2015 being the 50th anniversary, I believe, of the signing. Yeah, so perfect timing, right. So your argument, you know, a lot of people from around the country have actually noted that and have brought that same argument. Your argument in this case is brought against it as a racial issue. A lot of the offices that have been closing are largely in minority race communities. For those of our viewers around the world who are unfamiliar, can you clarify why you believe this is to be true?
Sure. So we're not bringing any suits against this because, as I said before, the Voting Rights Act has not made it very likely that we can bring a suit against this. I'm not saying that it will never happen, but at this moment we don't have any plans to do so. So what we're really focusing on is advocacy efforts and efforts to get people to stand up and say that voting rights are important. The reason that this is a racial issue is because in every single county in Alabama, where 75% of the population of that county is black, they decided to close down the DMV offices. And they say that that's because there are also counties that are very poor, and counties that don't have very many social services. And they say that the reason they closed that down was because those DMV offices weren't open for very long anyway. Most of them were only open about 2 days a month. So that is true, but that also shows how the counties in Alabama that are 75% black have the least amount of social services and have the poorest residents. And that's also something that needs to be addressed. And that came about as a manner of systematic racism that helped bring these communities down. And if you have fewer social services, it's a lot harder to live and work and rise yourself up from that situation.
Right, right. saw the very convenience in that as well. I was like, oh, hell, yeah.
Yeah. And it also does not help things that a lot of the communities and counties that were in there tend to skew Democrat.
Yeah. Yeah.
A very Republican-controlled legislature.
Now, racial minorities face unjustifiable stigma and cruelty every day, particularly here in Alabama. Not only blacks, but Hispanics and even the Asian community. For those of our viewers worldwide and not from here, can you explain to us why that is and provide some truthful accounts of different kinds of legal discrimination that takes place here in our state and what's being done to challenge this open form of racism?
Sure. I think explaining why there is racism in our society, particularly in our state, is kind of a very large issue that would take a lot of time. But suffice it to say that some people, we've created a system where white people are in power, particularly white upper class men are in power, and people who are in power don't like to give that up. And so there's a systematic issue going on in our country and in our society that needs to be changed, and that is seen through putting down of all minorities, but also racial minorities. Not only the black population, although that has certainly felt a lot of this systematic oppression and injustice, but the Latinos in Alabama, and particularly the immigrant community overall, not only Latinos have felt a lot of the brunt of this in Alabama. A few years ago, they passed law HB 56, which was the strictest anti-immigrant law in the country. Arizona got a lot of attention because of their Show Me Your Papers, generally racist law.
Right, yeah.
But ours was actually more strict. It went further, and it tried to get public schools to require the showing of Social Security cards for school children.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It failed pretty quickly, which is why it was very unconstitutional. So we brought a suit along with other organizations in Alabama to show that HB 56 was unconstitutional. And because of that, the legislature came out with HB 568. Don't quote me on those numbers, I'm terrible at numbers. But, they brought out an update to HB 56. Which struck down a lot of the issues a lot of the major constitutional issues. So there still is a form of HB 56 available in Alabama, but it is struck down a little bit more. That's not to say that there isn't a lot of misinformation around it, and it did not strike a lot of fear in the hearts of the immigrant communities. One of my jobs here at the ACLU is to reach out to immigrant populations and to show them that we're here to help them out. I do that through a combination of Know Your Rights trainings, talking to people, going to their communities, working with other organizations like the Alabama Coalition for Immigrant Justice, Southern Poverty Law Center, Alabama Appleseed. We work with them to try to show the immigrant community that they're not alone, that not everyone in Alabama feels this way, and that it's not right. And that's generally what we've been doing right now. We also are very adamant and believe in the fact that intersectionality is the only real way to achieve justice. Our organization is greatly positioned to help with that because we work on a variety of different issues. We work on, just to name a few, immigrants' rights, reproductive freedom, freedom of speech and expression, freedom from religion and of religion, and LGBT rights, and the rights of incarcerated people also. So we're really well placed to work in this kind of intersectional framework. So another thing that we've been doing is examining how we can work with immigrant and LGBT organizations and bring them together, because there's a lot of really cool and exciting work being done to advance immigrant and LGBT justice in the state, and we really want to bring those together.
Sounds awesome and exciting.
It is.
Sounds like a really, really rewarding job to come in here every day and do.
It's fun.
You guys hired? No. So, backtracking just a little bit though, focusing again on those racial minorities, and unfortunately them being populated in many poor areas of the state. Are there alternatives where they may be able to get the licenses or the voter IDs in these counties that have been shut down?
Yes. So the counties that have been shut down now, Governor Bentley has come out that he is going to open the DMV offices one time a month, for 1 day a month. So that is certainly going to help. It's probably not enough, but
no.
You know. And there's always, if you only open it 1 day a month, how many times are people going to miss that deadline?
Right. Yeah.
Miss the opening.
Right.
So it does present its own issues. But in addition to that, they have a mobile voter ID van that comes along throughout the counties. So far, that van has only, and they're giving out only voter IDs. And so far, that van has given out 24 IDs. They visited 60 counties. So
I'm sorry, 2,400 or just 24?
24.
24. Just want to clarify that. All right. So, progress.
It does exist, but I think there are issues in people knowing where it is and having the time.
Yeah.
A lot of the times that they're there in counties, it's only for a few hours, and most of the time in the middle of the day. So if you're working, it's really hard to get off when the place is only open. For example, I think Blount County was from 10 to from 10 to 1. So that was the only time that it was open.
And
so,
when did this van start rolling out?
I'm not entirely sure, but it was at least a few months ago. I'm not.
Oh, so it's been.
I know it was in place a few months ago, but I don't know exactly when it was opened.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts on that, sorry.
No, not at all. Also, if you don't have a driver's license, you can get a free voter ID at your registrar office. Typically, those are only open a couple times a month also. You'll also have to check with your county to see when those are open. But that is an option that, at the very least, Alabama offers free voter IDs. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't still place an undue burden on voters. But if you do need one, you can go to your registrar's office and get a voter ID for free.
Okay. Well, we know that these DMV shutdowns have made, big headline news. Something else that's been in the headlines all this year has been the issue of Planned Parenthood. Can you tell us anything about any kind of currently pending issues with the state's defunding of Planned Parenthood? There we go.
It is a bit of a tongue twister. Well, I can say we have brought suit against Governor Bentley for his decision to defund Planned Parenthood. The reason that we brought that suit was because it was based on inaccurate videos, but also inaccurate videos that didn't even depict anybody who worked at Planned Parenthood Southeast advocates. Because Planned Parenthood is a larger organization. Governor Bentley decided to defund Planned Parenthood Southeast advocates, excuse me.
Right.
And so he basically said that Medicaid patients would be able to access Planned Parenthood. And I can't talk too much about it because it's still pending litigation.
Okay.
But we have brought a suit against that.
Okay.
And so we're hoping to, we always hope to win our cases. So
We do too, especially. So, well, thank you for touching on that. If someone were to reach out to the ACLU about a particular issue, how could they do that? And what would be like a justifiable reason to reach out?
We have on our website a link that says Get Help. You can click that link and fill out the fillable form online. You can also email info@aclualabama.org. We do have a Facebook and Twitter, and we encourage everyone to follow it and to keep up with us. But we do tend to ask people if they want to request legal help to go through our intake procedure, because those are seen by two different people.
Okay, yeah.
The communications people versus the legal people. We also have a phone number, but we encourage people to write to us. I think especially when doing legal stuff, it's super important to get everything down in writing right at the beginning.
Right.
And also that will go straight to our legal team, and so you'll get a response faster, I think, than if you probably called. So we really recommend go to our website, www.aclualabama.org, and click Get Help, or you can email info@aclualabama.org.
Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being part of the zine. Thank you for this great interview and letting us come to your awesome office and get a chance to get some wonderful information about some things happening in Alabama. We appreciate it a lot.
No problem. Thank you so much.